The sky above the palace of Velmora was dark with smoke. The war had taken everything. The cities were broken. The ships were gone. The people were tired. Inside the tall white palace, the great alien king of Velmora lay on a soft bed made of glowing stone. His breathing was slow. His body was weak. He knew his time was ending. Beside him stood his daughter. Her name was Lyra. She was small and thin. Her skin was pale. Her eyes were soft and full of worry. She had never seen a real battle. She had always stayed inside the palace walls. The king had kept her hidden from the world, hoping to protect her. Now, he had no choice. The king lifted his hand. His fingers trembled. A guard stepped forward and placed a silver box beside him. Inside the box was a small device, a message beacon. The king touched it and spoke softly. "Send it to Earth. Find him. The human who saved me many years ago. His name is Tomas." The guards looked surprised. One of them spoke. "Sire, a human. Are you sure?" The king nodded. "He is the only one I trust now. Give him Lyra. Tell him to protect her, teach her, help her become strong." Lyra stepped closer. "Father, no, I cannot go to another world. I do not know how to fight. I am not like you." The king touched her hand gently. "You have more strength than you know. You only need the right path. Earth is far from this war. Tomas will guide you." That night, a ship left Velmora in silence. It was small and hidden. Inside, Lyra sat alone. Her hands shook. Her heart was full of fear. She looked out the window at the stars. Behind her, her world was burning. Ahead, a strange planet waited. After many days of travel, the ship reached Earth. It landed in the northern highlands where the air was cold and fresh. Trees covered the mountains. Rivers flowed through the valleys. The sky was wide and blue. A man stood near a small wooden house. His clothes were simple. His hair was gray at the sides. His eyes were sharp but calm. This was Tomas. He had once been a soldier. He had seen many battles. But now he lived a quiet life, far from noise and war. He watched the ship land with no fear. He had been waiting. The message from the king had reached him days before. When the ship opened and Lyra stepped out, he saw a girl who looked more like a child than a princess. Lyra looked around nervously. The wind touched her face. It was colder than she expected. She walked toward Tomas slowly. He stood still, watching her. "You are Tomas?" she asked. "I am," he said. "My father sent me to you," he said. "He said you would help me." Tomas nodded. "I will. But it will not be easy." Lyra lowered her eyes. "I am not strong. I do not know how to fight. I cannot help my people." Tomas looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward the house. "Come inside. We start tomorrow." Lyra followed him inside. The house was small but warm. A fire burned in the stone hearth. The smell of herbs filled the air. There were books on the shelves and tools on the walls. A table stood in the center, with 2 chairs. Tomas gave her a simple meal, bread, soup, and warm tea. Lyra ate quietly. She looked around the house. It was nothing like the palace. There were no glowing lights or soft music, just the sound of wind outside and the crackling of fire. After the meal, Tomas gave her a small room. The bed was made of wood and covered with thick blankets. She sat on it, looking out the small window. The stars looked the same, even on this new world. She felt lost. She missed her father. She missed her people. She wondered if she had made a mistake. Maybe she was not meant for this. Maybe she was not meant to be strong. The next morning, before the sun rose, Tomas knocked on her door. "Time to wake up," he said. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. She was tired. Her body still ached from the long journey. But she got up. Outside, the world was quiet. The sky was still dark. Tomas handed her a thick coat. "Today we walk," he said. They walked up a long path through the trees. Lyra's legs felt weak. The ground was uneven. Her feet slipped more than once. Tomas did not slow down. He walked with steady steps, silent and sure. They reached a high cliff as the sun began to rise. The light touched the mountains. The sky turned gold and pink. Lyra stood beside Tomas, breathing hard. "Why bring me here?" she asked. "To see," Tomas said. "See what?" "That the world is bigger than your fear." Lyra looked at the wide sky, the tall trees, the far hills. Her fear was still there, but for a moment it felt small. "Tomorrow," Tomas said, "we climb higher." Lyra nodded slowly. She still felt weak. She still felt afraid. But now, a small part of her wanted to try. The next morning came with cold wind and soft fog. Lyra woke before the sun rose. Her legs were still tired from yesterday's walk. Her hands were cold and her body ached. But she remembered Tomas's words, so she got up without waiting. Tomas was already outside. He stood near the wooden fence, looking at the sky. He gave her a nod when she stepped out. "Good, you came," he said. Lyra pulled her coat tighter. "My legs hurt," she said quietly. Tomas looked at her boots. "They will hurt more before they grow strong," he said. They started walking again. This time, the path was steeper. The trees were taller here, and the wind stronger. The sun rose slowly behind the hills, painting the sky with orange light. At first, Lyra tried to keep up with Tomas, but soon her breath became short and her steps slowed. She slipped on wet leaves. She fell once and scraped her hand on a rock. She sat on the ground, breathing hard. "I cannot do this," she said. Tomas waited. He stood still, not far ahead. "Then sit here," he said, "and let the mountain win." Lyra looked at him. His voice was calm, not angry. But his words stung. She looked at the path ahead. It twisted up toward the rocks. She looked at her hand. The cut was small. The pain was not strong. She stood up again. "I will walk," she said. Tomas gave a small nod and turned to lead the way. They walked for 2 more hours. When they reached the top, the sky was wide and clear. Snow lay on the peaks. A small river ran through the rocks. The view was beautiful and quiet. Tomas sat on a flat stone. He took out bread and water from his pack and gave some to Lyra. "You did better today," he said. Lyra ate slowly. Her fingers were shaking. Her arms were tired. "Why do you not train me with weapons?" she asked. "If I must fight one day, why not teach me now?" Tomas looked at the river. "Because your body is not ready," he said, "and your mind is still full of fear." Lyra lowered her eyes. "How do I remove the fear?" "You do not," Tomas said. "You learn to walk with it." They sat in silence for a while. Then Tomas pointed to a tree growing from the side of the cliff. Its roots held the rock tightly. Its branches stretched toward the sun. "That tree should not be alive there," he said. "But it holds on. It grows slow, but strong. One storm cannot break it." Lyra watched the tree. It looked thin and alone. But it did not fall. It did not bend. They walked back to the house by sunset. Lyra's steps were slow, but she did not fall. That night, she slept deeper. Her dreams were filled with wind, stone, and light. Days turned into weeks. Every morning before sunrise, Tomas woke her. They walked new paths. They climbed taller hills. Lyra's legs grew stronger. Her feet learned to move with balance. Her breath became steady. Tomas did not praise her much. He only said what needed to be said. But Lyra saw his quiet approval in small things. He gave her harder tasks. He trusted her to find the way without help. One day, as they crossed a narrow bridge made of wood and rope, the wind picked up. Lyra stopped in the middle. The bridge shook under her feet. Her heart began to race. She felt the fear rise. She looked ahead. Tomas stood on the other side, watching her. "The wind is loud, but it cannot lift you," he said. She looked down. The rocks below were far. The fall would be long. "You said I must walk with the fear," she said. Tomas nodded. Double quotes, "Yes. Let it speak, but do not follow it." Lyra took a breath. She looked ahead. The fear was still there, but she took a step, then another, and another. She reached the end of the bridge. Tomas nodded again. "Good. You listen to yourself, not the fear." That night, Lyra sat near the fire inside the house. Tomas was sharpening an old tool. She looked at the flames and asked, Why do you live here, so far from others? Tomas paused. Because here I can hear the truth, he said. What truth? She asked. That the world does not wait for anyone. It moves forward if you wish to stand. You must move with it. Lyra thought about his words. She looked at her hands. The skin was rougher now. Her arms were stronger. Her back did not hurt as much. She still had far to go. But the girl who had stepped out of the ship was no longer the same. Tomas looked at her and added, You are learning, slowly but surely. The mountain does not grow in a day, but it does grow. Lyra smiled for the first time in many days. Tomorrow, I want to climb higher, she said. Tomas smiled back. Just a little, then we will. The wind carried the scent of pine trees and snow. The days in the mountains were long and cold. The sky changed from clear blue to gray clouds within minutes. Lyra had started to feel the rhythm of the land. Her steps were lighter now. Her hands were steady. Each morning, she tied her boots tightly and followed Tomas without needing to be told. They no longer just walked. Tomas added new tasks, carrying stones from one place to another, climbing with her eyes closed, listening for distant sounds and naming them. Lyra began to notice small things she never saw before. The way birds flew before the rain, the feel of still air before wind, the crunch of each footstep. One day, Tomas led her to a cave at the side of a cliff. The air inside was cool and damp. A small pool of water reflected the cave's roof like a mirror. Tomas gave her a piece of chalk. Mark every sound you hear, he said. Lyra stood still. She closed her eyes. She heard water drip, wind hum, a distant bird, her own heartbeat. She marked each sound on the cave wall. Time passed slowly. She did not speak. She only listened. When they returned to the house, it was already dark. Tomas made tea from mountain herbs. They sat near the fire as always. The flames danced, and the room felt warm. Lyra looked into the fire. Do you ever think about the past? She asked. Tomas stirred the fire with a stick. Sometimes, he said, but not for long. I still think about my home, Lyra said. I see the palace halls in my dreams. I see my father. He was strong once. Then I saw him weak. It stays in my mind. Tomas nodded. The past shapes us, but it should not hold us. Lyra looked at him. She had never asked about his life before. He never talked about it, but tonight something felt different. Were you a fighter? She asked. I was, Tomas replied. Long ago. He set his cup down and leaned back in the chair. I was part of a group, he said. We were sent far from Earth. We thought we were ready for anything. But one day, something went wrong. We walked into a trap. I lost everyone. Lyra watched his face. His voice was calm, but his eyes looked far away. I was the only one who lived, he said. There was silence for a while. I came back here, he added, to remember and to forget. Lyra did not speak. She understood now why he lived. In this quiet place, why he trained her with care, not with anger, not with pride, but with purpose. I do not want to be weak anymore, she said softly. You are not, Tomas replied. I was, she said, but I am changing. Tomas nodded. Then keep changing. The next morning, the sky was cloudy. Tomas took her to a flat open space in the woods. The ground was soft, covered with leaves. In the center stood a tree with a smooth trunk and low branches. Tomas drew a circle in the dirt. Stand here, he said. Lyra stepped into the circle. Now close your eyes. She obeyed. He threw a small stone at the ground near her feet. She jumped. Again, he said. He did it again. She jumped again. I want you to stay still, he said. She tried. It took time. At first, she moved every time he made a noise. But after a while, she stopped reacting. She began to listen instead of fear. Her breath became steady. Tomas stepped closer. You see, he said, stillness is also strength. Not every battle is loud. Some are quiet, inside the mind. Lyra opened her eyes. I feel calm. She said, that is your weapon. Tomas said, a calm mind cannot be broken easily. In the days that followed, Tomas showed her more. How? To track movement without being seen. How to feel the ground through her feet. How to sense danger not by sight, but by presence. One night, a storm came. Rain fell in waves. The house creaked under the wind. Lyra could not sleep. She stepped outside under the roof and watched the rain hit the ground. Tomas stood nearby, leaning on the door. "You are not afraid of storms?" she asked. "I used to be," he said. "Then I stayed in one long enough. Now it speaks to me." "What does it say?" she asked. "That everything passes," Tomas said. "Even fear, even storms." Lyra looked up at the sky. Water ran down her face. She felt something change inside her. A small light, a small flame. It did not burn. It warmed. The next day, Tomas handed her a long stick. "This is not a weapon," he said, "but it teaches." He showed her how to move with it, not to hit, but to control. Her hands learned to guide the stick like a dance. Slow at first, then quicker. She moved with focus, with rhythm. Tomas watched. His face showed no smile, but his eyes watched closely. "You are learning more than movement," he said. "You are learning choice, when to act, when to wait." Lyra trained from morning to night. Her body no longer hurt the same way. Her hands no longer shook. Her fear still came sometimes, but it no longer ruled her. She began to teach herself small things. How to jump between rocks without slipping. How to land softly. How to balance with one foot on a narrow log. She still missed her father. She still worried about her people. But now, she did not feel helpless. She was becoming someone else. Not a child. Not a shadow of a kingdom. She was becoming her own flame. And that flame was growing brighter with each step. The morning was cold, but the sky was clear. The sun rose slowly behind the mountain, painting the clouds with gold. Lyra stood outside the house, waiting. Her breath formed clouds in the air, but she did not feel the cold like before. Her hands were steady. Her legs were strong. Her eyes no longer looked afraid. Tomas stepped out of the house carrying a wooden box. It was long and heavy. He placed it on the ground and opened it. Inside were simple tools. Not machines, not weapons from space, just old earth things, a wooden staff, a short sword made of steel, a long rope, and a bow made from strong wood. Lyra looked at them with quiet wonder. "You said I was not ready for weapons," she said. Tomas looked at her. "You were not. But now you are learning. These are not just tools. They teach more than fighting." He picked up the wooden staff and handed it to her. "This is the first," he said. "It teaches balance, control, direction." Lyra held it with both hands. It felt smooth and strong. Tomas showed her how to hold it, how to move with it. The steps were slow. Each move needed focus. At first, she tripped. The staff slipped from her hands. It hit the ground more than once. But she did not give up. Tomas corrected her posture. He made her repeat each step again and again. She moved through the same motions for hours. Step, turn, block, spin, step again. Her arms ached, her legs burned. Still, she moved. By evening, she could go through 10 steps without losing balance. "Good," Tomas said. "Now the staff becomes part of your hand, not a tool, but an extension." The next day, Tomas gave her the rope. "Many people forget the rope," he said, "but it saves more than it harms." He taught her how to tie knots quickly, how to climb using the rope, how to swing across trees. She learned to use the rope to pull herself up steep cliffs and to catch falling objects. Her fingers became fast. Her grip became strong. After a week, Tomas brought out the bow. "This teaches patience," he said, "and trust in the eye." He placed a wooden target far from the house. Then he handed her the bow and a few arrows. Lyra stood in the cold grass, holding the bow. She drew the string, aimed, and released. The arrow flew, but missed the target by many steps. Tomas said nothing. He simply gave her another arrow. She tried again, missed again, each time. He watched her form. He corrected her hands, her shoulders, her breathing. He did not speak much. He let her fail and try again. After 2 days, she hit the edge of the target. By the 5th day, she struck the center once. When she did, Tomas nodded. Now you see, he said, that a quiet hand and a focused mind are stronger than speed. Lyra began to practice with all the tools. She moved with the staff in the morning. She climbed trees with the rope before noon. She shot arrows in the afternoon. She trained with her full heart. The forest became her home, and the mountain became her guide. Tomas sometimes watched from a distance. Sometimes he corrected her. But more often now, he let her find her own way. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Tomas handed her the short sword. This is earth steel, he said. It is not like the crystal blades of your world. It is simple, but it holds its edge. Lyra took it carefully. The blade was clean and sharp. The handle fit well in her hand. You will not swing this in the air, Tomas said. You will learn to respect it. He showed her the weight of the blade, the way it should move, not fast, not wild, but controlled. Like a dance with purpose, Lyra spent many days with the blade. She walked with it, trained with it, sat beside it. She learned its sound, the way it cut air, the way it moved with her steps. One day, as she moved with the sword under a large tree, a branch snapped above her. A thick piece of wood fell toward her from above. Lyra turned and raised the sword. The wood hit the blade and fell aside. Tomas stepped forward from behind the tree. He had broken the branch. Lyra looked at him, breathing fast. You did that, she said. Double quotes, yes. Tomas said, to see if you would react with fear or focus. She looked at the sword in her hand. I did not think, she said. I just moved. That is how you know you are learning, Tomas said. That night, they sat near the fire again. The stars above were bright. The air was still. Tomas looked at her. You have changed, he said. Not just your body, but your spirit. I feel different, Lyra said. I feel awake. Tomas placed a hand on the table. You are not finished, he said. But now, you can begin. Lyra thought about his words for the first time. In her life, she did not feel weak. She did not feel like a burden. The tools around her were no longer strange. They were part of her journey. She looked at the fire, then at her hands. I want to learn more, she said. I want to go beyond this mountain. Tomas nodded slowly, and when the time comes, he said, you will. The wind was calm, and the sky above the mountain was full of soft morning light. Lyra stood alone in the open field near the house. She held her sword gently in her hand. Her steps were steady. Her movements were quiet. The sword danced in them. Air with smooth grace. Tomas watched her from the doorway. He had not spoken much in the past few days. He had been watching more than teaching. Lyra had grown in ways he had hoped for, but had never been certain would come. She was no longer the pale girl who had stepped out of the ship with shaking hands. She was taller now, stronger. Her eyes held a quiet strength. Her breath was calm even after long training. The mountain had shaped her. Tomas stepped forward and handed her a piece of paper. It was folded and thin, but the words written on it were clear. This came from the Sky Tower, he said. Lyra opened the paper and read it slowly. Her hands did not shake, but her heart grew heavy with each word. The message came from a Velmoran outpost, hidden deep in the stars. It said that the Ashari had reached the final defense line. The last group of soldiers had fallen. The king was gone. The capital was lost. Only small pockets of her people remained, hiding, waiting for help that would never come. Lyra stood in silence. The wind moved through the trees. The sword in her hand felt heavier than before. So the war has reached the end, she said. Tomas nodded. It seems so. She looked out at the hills. The path she had taken to reach this place now felt like a dream. So many days and nights had passed. She had become strong. But the world she left behind had become weak. What should I do now? She asked. Tomas did not answer right away. He sat on the wooden bench beside the house. The fire inside the house had gone out. Smoke rose gently from the chimney. You came here to learn, he said. Now you must decide what you do with that strength. Lyra looked at the sword in her hand. It was not just a tool anymore. It was part of her story. I want to return, she said. Not to be saved, but to help. Tomas looked at her carefully. If you go, he said, you will not be the same person who left. You will be something new. The world will not see you as a princess anymore. I do not want to be seen as a princess, she said. I want to be seen as someone who stood when others could not. Tomas nodded slowly. He stood and went into the house. After a few minutes, he returned with a small metal box. He opened it and showed her a blade. It was not like the sword she had used. This one was sharper, stronger, and brighter. Its handle was made of dark wood, and the blade had a line of light running through it. This is for you, he said. I made it from earth steel and Velmoran crystal, a mix of two worlds. Lyra took it with both hands. The blade felt warm. The weight was perfect. She looked at Tomas. I will carry this with honor. He nodded again. Tomas then showed her the old ship hidden behind the house. It had been covered in vines and branches for many years, but it was still able to fly. They worked together for 2 days to prepare it. Lyra cleaned the panels and checked the systems. Tomas repaired the engines and rewired the controls. On the 3rd day, the ship stood ready. The wind had grown softer, and the sky was clear. Lyra stood at the edge of the field. She looked back at the house, the trees, the mountains. She felt something deep in her chest. This place had changed her. It had given her what she never found in the palace: strength, purpose, and a new beginning. Tomas walked up to her. You will face many things out there, he said. Some will test your body. Others will test your mind. But remember what you learned here. You are not alone. She looked at him with respect. I will carry your lessons with me, always. Tomas handed her a small stone. It was round and smooth, with a mark carved into it. This is a signal stone, he said. If you ever find yourself lost, press it. It will send a message. I may not be able to come, but I will hear it. Lyra took the stone and placed it in her pocket. Thank you, she said. She stepped into the ship. The door closed behind her. The lights came on. The engines hummed softly. Tomas stepped back and watched as the ship rose into the air. The wind blew his coat. His eyes followed the ship as it rose above the trees, then above the mountains. Then it disappeared into the clouds. Lyra sat in the pilot's seat. Her hands moved with calm skill across the controls. The stars opened before her. Each one was a story. Each one was a choice. She looked at her reflection in the glass. I'm not who I was, she said to herself. Now I choose who I become. Behind her was the mountain. Ahead of her was a broken empire waiting for hope. And in her hands was the blade that carried the strength of both Earth and Velmora. Lyra's ship flew across the stars like a quiet light. The world of Earth faded behind her, and the broken empire of Velmora came closer with each passing hour. Her heart felt steady, but her mind was filled with thoughts. What would she find? Would her people remember her? Would they still have hope? She followed the last message signal sent by the Velmoran outpost. It led her to a small hidden moon near the edge of the old star roots. The moon had no cities, no towers, just caves and rocky hills. Her ship landed gently on the surface. She stepped out wearing the gear Tomas had prepared for her. Her cloak moved with the wind, and her blade rested across her back. Her eyes were sharp, but calm. She looked around and saw no one at first. Then a signal light blinked near one of the caves. She walked toward it with quiet steps. Inside the cave, a group of Velmoran survivors sat in silence. They were tired, cold, and hungry. Most were older men and young boys. A few women held tools and old weapons. When they saw Lyra, they stood up quickly. Some of them reached for their weapons, unsure if she was a threat. I am Lyra, she said, daughter of the last king. The room fell still. Some gasped. One woman stepped forward. The princess. But you were sent away. Lyra nodded. I was. But I have returned, not to rule, but to stand with you. An old man stepped forward. His eyes were deep and tired. You look different, he said. Not like a royal child. I am not a child anymore, Lyra replied. They welcomed her into the cave. She sat with them and listened. The survivors told her how the empire had fallen. The Ashari had taken the capital and now sent patrols to every world. Anyone who fought back was captured or chased into hiding. Lyra asked about the nearby systems. She learned which planets still had small rebel groups. She marked them on a star map. Then she stood and said, "I will go to them, one by one. We must join together." A young boy looked at her with doubt. "But we are not soldiers," he said. "You can become strong," she answered, "just as I did." The next day, she left the moon and flew to a nearby planet once known for its learning centers. Now the schools were empty, but in the deep forests, she found a group of young students who had hidden when the buildings fell. They were fast and clever, but had no guidance. She trained with them for many days. She taught them the movements Tomas had taught her, how to use their senses, how to move without sound, how to work together. One night, they asked her, "Why do you fight?" Lyra answered, "Because my people need someone to believe in, and I believe in them." Soon, stories began to spread. Whispers of a warrior with quiet feet and a glowing blade. She moved between stars, helping hidden groups grow strong. She did not wear a crown. She did not speak like a ruler. But people followed her. They called her the Flame, not because she burned things, but because she lit the hearts of those who had gone cold with fear. On one dry world, she met a group of farmers who had no weapons. She taught them to use tools to protect themselves. She taught them how to work together like Tomas had shown her. She stayed with them for a short time, then left after she left. They were no longer afraid. On another frozen moon, she found a small team of engineers trying to fix an old ship. She helped them with the repairs. She brought food from another world. They offered her metal and parts. She gave them maps and knowledge in every place she visited. She gave more than she took. Her movements were quick, but her purpose was clear. She did not chase power. She spread hope. The Ashari began to notice. Their patrols started to search for the girl with the strange blade. They heard of small groups defeating larger forces. They heard of unity where before there was only fear, but they could not find her. She moved like the wind. She never stayed in one place too long. Her ship was quiet and fast. Her face was remembered only by those she helped. One night, as she rested on a green hill under a sky full of stars, a messenger arrived. He brought news from one of the last free outposts. The Ashari leader had called for a final attack on the last remaining Velmoran core world. If that world fell, the spirit of the people might break for good. Lyra looked at the stars. "It is time," she said. She sent out a signal across the old rebel channels. It was a simple message: stand now, not for the past, but for the future. One by one, ships began to rise from hidden hangars. People gathered in old fields, mechanics, students, farmers, teachers. They wore no perfect uniforms, but they stood with pride. Lyra stood at the front, her blade across her back, her eyes full of calm fire. She did not promise victory. She promised to fight beside them, and that was enough. The sky above the Velmoran core world was filled with dark clouds and silver light. Ships hovered in silence, engines waited. Lights blinked in long lines across the sky. On the ground, people stood side by side. They did not wear royal colors. They wore simple clothes, armor built from old parts, and courage in their eyes. Lyra stood at the front. Her cloak moved with the wind. The crystal blade Tomas had given her rested on her back. Her hands were steady. Her face showed no fear. Across the field, on a high platform, the leader of the Ashari stood. She wore dark armor and gave no smile. Her voice echoed from a speaker. "Velmora is broken," she said. "You are the last to fall. Stand down now. You will be spared." Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was calm and clear. "We are not broken. We are just beginning." The Ashari leader laughed once, but Lyra did not move. Her eyes stayed fixed on the sky. Her people waited for her signal. They had come from many places, from farms, schools, and old ships. They had no perfect plan, but they had something stronger: belief. Lyra raised her hand. In a smooth line, the people moved forward. The field filled with footsteps. They carried tools and old weapons. They carried hope. Above them, ships from the rebel groups formed wings of light. They had heard Lyra's message. They had come because of her, not because she was royal, but because she had walked with them, trained with them, and believed in them. The Ashari force began to move, but they were slow. They did not understand this kind of strength. They knew control and fear, but they did not know unity. The wind grew stronger. Lyra stepped ahead of her group. She moved forward with careful steps. Each footstep reminded her of her training in the mountains, the quiet snow, the rocky paths. Tomas's voice in the wind. A wide space opened in front of her. The Ashari leader stepped down from the platform. She looked at Lyra. You are the king's daughter, a girl sent away to hide. Now you come back to stand alone. I do not stand alone, Lyra said. Look behind me. The Ashari leader turned. Her eyes moved across the crowd of people, the ships in the sky, and the quiet strength in their faces. She looked back at Lyra. You train with humans, she said. That is not our way. It is now, Lyra said. The wind blew stronger. The clouds shifted. The sky seemed to open. The Ashari leader lowered her head for a moment, then stepped back. Lyra turned to her people. Today is not about winning, she said. It is about standing, so the next generation knows we did not give up. The people cheered quietly. They held their ground. Then the Ashari stepped away. Their ships began to rise. They had never faced resistance like this before. They did not understand it. They did not want to fight a people who no longer feared. The skies cleared slowly. One by one, the ships left the air above the core world. The field was silent. Lyra stood still for a long time. Then an old woman walked to her and placed her hand on Lyra's shoulder. You gave us our strength back, she said. Lyra smiled. You already had it. You just needed someone to remind you. The days that followed were full of rebuilding. Cities began to rise again. Schools opened. Fields were planted. Lyra did not take the throne. She gave leadership to a council made of people from across the stars. Farmers, teachers, engineers, builders. She visited every place she could. She walked with the people. She listened. She helped. She did not stay in one place for long. Her ship moved between worlds, not as a symbol of power, but of service. On one quiet evening, after many years had passed, her ship landed once more. On the mountain she had once called home. The trees were taller. The sky looked the same. The house was still there. Tomas was older, sitting outside on the bench, his hands resting on his knees. He looked up as she approached. So, he said, you found your path. Lyra sat beside him. I found more than that, she said. I found who I am. Tomas looked at her blade. You kept it well. It reminds me of both my homes, she said. They sat in silence for a while. The wind moved through the leaves. The stars above began to shine. Did you become what your father hoped? Tomas asked. I became what I chose, Lyra said. And that is enough. She looked at the mountain, the trees, and the sky. Then, she smiled. I still have more to do, she said. Then go, Tomas replied. The stars are waiting. She stood up slowly, placed her hand over her heart in respect, then turned to her ship. The wind followed her. The stars opened again, and the warrior who had once been a quiet, frail girl walked into the future, not as a shadow of the past, but as a flame that would light the way for others.